What's up, everybody? Welcome to Touchdown Texas, Episode 9. I'm your host, Shivam Nick, and Nick Rodriguez is also here. He's my co-host, coming off a Horns win 27-24 against Vanderbilt. It was a little bit closer than we wanted it to be, but it was a crazy game. I'm here in Nashville. There was a flood of burnt orange there, the crowd, a lot of Texas fight, a lot of hook 'em. But, Nick, we survived, and we got the win, and that's all that matters.
We survived. I mean, wasn't the prettiest game, that's for sure. But glad we still got the win in the win column. I mean, they are a ranked team.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say all that. But went on the road in the SEC. Can never take it for granted. So 7-1, somewhat of a bounce back after our loss to Georgia.
For sure. And just to get everybody hyped, I'm going to show a little video, and then me and Nick are going to get into our analysis. So that was from yesterday. I was at the game. It was a lot of burnt orange. We were right in front of or behind the band, so they were keeping us upbeat, and it was a great experience. And we were taking over Nashville. Longhorns fans were all over the city, and it was a great game to be a part of. But before we get to talking about the game, be sure to follow us at touchdown_Texas on our social media channels and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Me and Nick are doing these episodes every week, reacting to all the Texas football games. So this is your place to come. And we also have fan interaction when we do our live shows as well. So be sure to tune in and follow us for the more content. So let's talk about the game overall. So Quinn did throw for 3 touchdown passes. He did have 2 interceptions. Both of them were off batted balls. But overall, I thought he bounced back. Great Quinn's performance, and how do you think he played on the road in his first SEC game?
I don't really think he played that poorly. I mean, I know I've read some things where people thought he played really bad and all that stuff. Must have not seen the first half where he was 19 of 21 for 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Sorry, I'm just like coughing all of a sudden. So I'm just feeling my nose. But I would say like a B-. He did have some happy feet. The 2 interceptions were both tipped balls, which, we were talking about a little bit. The first one, I didn't think was his fault. I mean, the offensive line got really pushed back, and he was just throwing it. The second one, probably shouldn't have thrown that one. Another tip ball. Ends the day with 2 interceptions, but I still thought he was efficient. Obviously, he did enough to win the game. But the biggest thing for us is the penalties and the offensive line not supporting Quinn enough. It doesn't matter who's back there. It could be McCoy, but if there's no one protecting long enough, you're going to have issues. And it's that, and it's the so many holding penalties. I think we were over 100 yards in holding. So that's really frustrating. I can't put it all on Quinn. I thought he looked fine. I thought in the first half he was like 17 for 17 at one point. So I'm happy with his performance. B-. You don't want the second interception. Probably shouldn't have thrown that one. But other than that, I mean, it's really the offensive line that's the major issue.
It really is. And just before we dive deep into the offensive line, just talking about the quarterback, Quinn was, really good in this game. I gave him a B+. After his first interception, which it was a tip ball, Sark said at the end it was just an unlucky play. Nick said, he had 17 straight passes, completed passes, 2 off his record from OU last year, which was 19, believe it or not. And in the first half, he was 19 of 21 for 3 touchdowns. That dime that he threw to DeAndre Moore was an awesome touchdown, well as Matthew Golden in the end zone. So Quinn was really sharp in the first half. You could tell he was getting through his progressions, making his reads, making the right plays, and also helped Sark scripted a lot of the plays for him and got him comfortable with easy throws to get his confidence up. Where the problem was in the second half, and again, I'm not blaming Quinn for the second half. It was a team effort, but Quinn was 8 of 16. He had one interception in the second half. He was not good at all. I felt like he was locking too much into his first reads.
Yeah.
He was going into his checkdowns a little bit more, and you could see Vanderbilt was starting to do what Georgia did, was guarding the checkdown. So, and Quinn wasn't really just looking and scanning the field like he needed to. A couple of those sacks were not his fault because there was a defender right in his face. The offensive line whipped. Cam Williams really struggled, number 56, not only with the false start, but with the holding penalties. So, like, some of those sacks were not Quinn's fault, but he did have a couple of nice runs in the second
Yeah.
half. I saw that he stepped into his throws more. He climbed the pocket, and you could tell that he trusted his arm more and trusted his read. So it was a better performance. You would like to see him be a little bit sharp in the second half, but it was an overall team effort.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think he came in against Georgia. I mean, that was tough. I mean, or he came in against Oklahoma, and it was a little shaky at first, and then we ended up taking care of business there, and then. Georgia, we just looked completely overmatched. But this one, I mean, I think two things can be said and two things can be true. One, Vanderbilt is actually a good team. They're now 5-3. They're not going to be ranked anymore, although I think they still should be. But they were 25th. I mean, they're not a bad team. It's not the old Vandy, but it's not an excuse. Texas has way more talent than them. If they have any aspirations of winning a national championship, you should be able to overpower and beat that team. So two things can still be true. And unfortunately, just looked that way as much in the second half. The first half, I thought we really started to pull away, and then we just let them back in with stupid penalties. Like I texted you, we should have won 34-17 because of what the score was at one point. Get the targeting call, from the passer, and then negated a pick six, which would have made it 34-17 instead of what it ended up being. So happy we got the win, but not exactly happy about the way it came out at the end.
For sure. And again, I'm not putting this on Quinn, but Quinn's second tipped interception, we were up in the second half. It was 24-10. So that gave Vandy a short field, and then they scored a touchdown. So Vandy scored 14 points off our turnovers.
Yes.
And we forced 3 turnovers on Vandy, 2 interceptions by Diego Pavia, and then a fumble by the running back. And I don't think we even got any points off their turnovers. I might be wrong about that, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that was the difference. It allowed Vandy to get back into the game. But the offensive line I expected better from them. 10 penalties. I believe 6 of them were holding calls, a couple of false starts. In the fourth quarter, when we were trying to ice the game away, there was 3 straight possessions where there was a holding call. One on Amari Niblack, one on Kelvin Banks, which I thought personally was a weak call, but they called it. And then the third one on Gunnar Helm. And believe it or not, all those plays resulted in first down, so that we had to move the ball back. There's penalties at inopportune times. Nick said it, the ref and the passer call, which was a good call. And now we lost Vernon Broughton, our best defensive tackle, for the first half of next week's game, or 2 weeks, game against Florida. And it was just boneheaded penalties that they were playing undisciplined. And we just have to be better, because you're not going to win games like this, especially against higher caliber opponents.
No, you're not. I mean, A&M just took care of LSU. I mean, when I went to bed, LSU was up by 17-14. They ended up storming back. So if we're going to have a chance to play better in the SEC, which I'm not losing hope. That's not what I'm saying. I think we still have the talent. I'm glad we have a bye week this upcoming week where we can get our minds right and be like, look, we won. We beat a Vandy team that is good, but if we want to win a national championship, we should be doing a lot more to Vandy than we just did, right?
Yep.
We can see what they did to Alabama, and Alabama's not going to a national championship. We're 12th, right? They beat Missouri. That's a whole other thing. But I think we need to just refocus, get back to what we've been doing all year long for the last 2 years, and get that offensive line going. If we're going to do anything, any week, it's not Quinn. It's the offensive line. Yes, Quinn plays a part, but if the offensive line is that bad, maybe he felt like he had to get rid of some of those players. So I don't know. It offensive line, not great as far as protection the last 2 weeks, and then also the penalty, like you said, like
frustrating.
Crucial. It's not like we're up big, in the second half, and we can kind of let those happen, like when we're playing Mississippi State. No, we're trying, like you said, we're trying to ice the game. We're trying to win the game. And I know Jaden Blue had a couple of runs, or Weiser had a couple of runs that had to be called back. And I'm like, oh my God, that's such backbreaking. And the penalties, I don't think it was even bad officiating. There was one that was a little ticky-tacky, but every other one was right. And Vandy, was the more disciplined team in the second half and almost pulled it out. So we just have to get better. Hopefully that's a focus for Sark this week.
It really is, because you could be as great of a team as you want, but if you keep going backwards, and it hurts because our offense, in my opinion, has not been right since the Mississippi State game. So, like, if you
I
continue to
agree.
put your offense in unadvantageous situations, they're going to struggle. Like when it was 1st and 20 to ice the game, luckily we had a 14-yard pass to Ryan Wingo, so that made it a 3rd and 9. And then Jaden Blue had a 23-yard run, and that's what even allowed us to get the field goal to get a 10-point lead, because those penalties almost put us out of field goal range, and that means we would have had to punt it back to Vanderbilt, and they probably would have tied the game, and the game would have went to overtime, and who knows what would have happened. So the running game has not been great this year. A lot of it's because of injuries due to with CJ Baxter, and Wisner has been dinged up. Blue has been dinged up. Gibson, as we have not seen Gibson play since the Michigan game, because of his weakness in pass protection. Even though he's a bruiser, the running game was really huge for us. Wisner, I liked the way he played when there was not penalties. He broke a lot of tackles. He played with a lot of physicality. Jaden Blue, who did not have a carry last week against Georgia because he's not a between the tackles runner, they got him in space on the outside. He made a couple of guys miss, because Vanderbilt did a great job of pursuing to the ball, but Jaden Blue's athleticism is what got us the extra yards. So the running game, who has been a little bit of a weakness for this offense, actually helped us get enough first downs in the first quarter and allow us to get points. So that was at least an encouraging sign for this team, and hopefully we can build on that running game for next week.
I think so. I'm not losing any hope. I still think we're going to be in the thick of it in the SEC. I have no doubt about that. I think if we get a chance at Georgia again, it's going to be a whole different experience. By the way, at the end of the show, I would like to give my take on the Georgia game, because I was out last week.
Sure.
I was with my dad for the Falcons game, but absolutely, I still think we're in the thick of it. I mean, the SEC is more wide open than it's ever been, right? I mean, A&M is the only team, I believe, with no losses.
Yeah,
they look really good, and we're going to have to go to their and play them. Our offensive line is going to have to be way better, right? Thankfully, we don't play LSU this year, right? So we play Florida in 2 weeks. We got Kentucky, we've got Arkansas, we've got A&M, right? We got to close out strong. I think if we play well, we can get there. But it's not all on Quinn. I don't like when everyone says, "Oh, it's a Quinn issue. Put in Arch." If they put in Arch, maybe there's a player or two that he does a little bit differently. But if you're not getting protection, you're not getting protection. So
it doesn't matter who's back there. Yeah,
I have faith it will, and I think hopefully we come out really, really strong against Florida in 2 weeks.
We will, I think, for sure, because the bye week's coming at a much needed time. We were 9 of 15 on third down efficiency, and the running game actually converted 4 of those 9 attempts for us.
That's good. That's good.
And there was a lot of emphasis coming into this game, because we know Stark's game plan. He likes to throw in the first half, get a lead, and then salt the game away in the second half. Well, Stark, in my opinion, trusted the running game more. Like, he was going to the running game in like 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, because he knew that Vanderbilt was expecting the pass, because that's the MO on Sark. So he trusted the running backs, which should give them confidence, especially Jaden Blue, who you saw that he was down a little bit after last week's game. And Wisner, we can see, is our number 1 running back, because Jaden Blue didn't get into like the 3rd series, and Wisner had 17 carries to Jaden Blue's 10. So Wisner is going to be our featured back, and I like that. But also, to wrap up the offense, I want to talk about the wide receivers. DeAndre Moore, two touchdown passes. After having 0 touchdown passes the first 3 weeks of the season, he's been absolutely balling. Matthew Golden, sure-handed wide receiver, and had a great catch. Ryan Wingo had some catches. Had some catches when he needed to be, because we missed Isaiah Bond for this game, who's our clear-cut number 1 wide receiver. Gunnar Helm had some crossing routes over the middle. He had a decent game as well. Struggled a little bit in the blocking game, but he's a senior. He's going to bounce back. So the passing game, the wide receivers helped Quinn out in certain situations, which was you like to see, because the wide receivers did not have a good game last week against Georgia.
Definitely not. No, I think they played a lot better. I mean, I like how Matthew Golden played. I liked the running back duo. I mean, I think you're totally right about Wisner. I think he's definitely the man now, which we kind of talked about earlier in the season with the Michigan game. about Jaden Blue fumbling the ball, and he's not going to be RB1 if he keeps turning the ball over. Well,
Yeah,
that's been the case. And then Wisner takes care of the ball, but he's also great between the tackles. Man, DeAndre Moore, that was an awesome coming out party for him.
beast.
Great
Yeah.
touchdown. I think he had 2 touchdowns. Did he not?
2 touchdowns. Yep, 2.
2 touchdowns. Yeah, and some great grabs. I mean, he looked really good. I think right now we need to focus on playing a full football game because we played a great first half. We played a decent fourth quarter and a decent third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to cut it against SEC teams, even SEC teams that you're like, they're decent. Oh, it's Vandy. If we want to win a national championship, hell, if we want to get to the playoff or the SEC championship game, we got to play a lot better because as we've seen, that did not work against Georgia, and it would not work against A&M. I guarantee that.
Because A&M's defensive line is not the same as Georgia's, but they're pretty close
They're very
second. They're very good.
And at home, that would be tough.
That's been a crazy game for sure. So shout out to the wide receivers. DeAndre Moore had 97 yards, so he had a great game. It was a little surprising just to wrap it up on the offense. We didn't see Jonte Cook, but he's not in the circle of trust anymore after that drop pass against Mississippi State. So hopefully he can get back in. But we'll see. We need Isaiah Bond back, but we got the win, and the offense looked good and got yards when they needed to and points. So now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Let's give a grade for the defense because they did help Vanderbilt to only 10 points, but they got turnovers, which gave Vanderbilt short fields, which kind of inflated the point total a little bit. So grade the defense. How do you think they played overall?
I'm going to go B+ on the grade for them. Like you said, I think it looks worse than it is. Like if you didn't watch the game and you go, damn, we only won by 3. But I think a lot of that is the 14 points that the Texas offense gave to them. I mean, that first one was ridiculous. It was like on their 20. So they didn't have very far to go. And I'm watching it with my fiance, and I'm like, all of a sudden it's 7-0 Vanderbilt. I'm like, the game just started. So I don't think obviously you can't really blame the defense for that one. I mean, you would like for them to push back a little bit, but I mean, not much they could do there. They forced 3 turnovers. If the offense Taft had a great game. If you don't convert on those points, that's not the defense's fault. The defense is supposed to stop and prevent big plays, right? That's what the defense does, and they did that. I mean, they allowed 24 points. 10 of those I would say were legit. 2 of them were turnovers from our offense. So I would still say a B+, still strong performance. Sometimes you got pushed down the field, but man, I really did like in crucial points of the game. This is what I'm talking about. Is we went after Pavia. And I like that kid. He's good. But
he's a baller. Yeah.
That defensive line in that fourth quarter, especially late, really got after him. Trey Moore, I thought, had a better game. Michael Taft had a good game.
All over the field. Yeah.
All over the field. So our defense, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, has actually been a better unit for our entire team this entire year. We've been leaning more on that defense. So a B+ for me. I thought a lot of guys played really well, especially in the crucial moments of the game.
Yeah, we have been leading on our defense because the defense has really picked us up when the offense has been struggling. And the defense forced 3 turnovers, 2 Diego Pavia interceptions, and 1 fumble by the running back. And they held Diego Pavia to his lowest total output. He only had like 210 total yards. That's passing and running. So, and besides that 15-yard scamper that he had for the first touchdown, they held him in check in the running game. Like they tried to do the QB runs, and they were holding him in check. They were staying disciplined with their eyes because he's very crafty. He loves to do the fakes. He loves to do misdirection. Yeah, he's a great player, like Nick said. He's fun to watch.
Yes.
And he's a beast, and he's been a big reason why Vanderbilt has had a lot of success, so far this season. But they held Vanderbilt to 3 of 12 on third downs. So they were getting Vanderbilt off the field because we know coming to this game, Vanderbilt will run out, will try to bleed out the clock, get into 3rd and 3s. And that's what they did against Alabama. And they converted those 3rd and 3s and then had these long possessions that kept the other team's offense off the field. Well, we didn't let Vanderbilt do that. We didn't let them do that same game plan that they did against Alabama. Yep, like Nick said, Tapp was all over the field. Forced fumble, interception, tackles. He had like 7 tackles, something ridiculous. Trey Moore had a huge deflection at the goal line when and he also had a fumble recovery. So nice to have a Trey Moore sighting on this season.
Yeah,
Ethan Burke and Barron Terrell were getting QB pressures, QB hits. So our defense overall played really well. Anthony Hill, as we've been saying it for the last 3 weeks, all over the field.
Should have had an interception, just
Should have
dropped
had
it.
a
And they
yes.
scored on that drive too.
Right. So overall, I was very happy with how the defense played. They did a great job of not letting Vanderbilt get those explosive plays,
Yeah.
and by stopping those explosive plays, they did not allow Diego Pavia to get going in the run game, which was huge because this game took a lot of discipline because Vanderbilt's offense is very tricky, very crafty, and they have a great game plan. So defense did a great job of shutting that down.
I think that's the positive we can lean on, right? Because I think if you were to go, man, we are putting up 50 points a game, right? I'm gonna like flip our problem, right? Like let's say our offense is unbelievable, right? We have 50 points a game, and it's unreal, but our defense is trash, right? Like we're letting up at least 30 to 30, 40 points a game, right? It's got to be a shootout. When it comes to crunch time, you would rather have the veteran quarterback, Quinn Ewers,
Yep.
and an offense. I mean, think about it. Sark is an offensive guru. He could turn this thing around. I'd rather have our problem right now where the defense is playing lights out and the offense is just like making bonehead decisions, holding and all this stuff that can get cleaned up by the end of the season, then if a defense is so much harder to fix, that's more of a talent issue. And
I agree.
have a talent issue on defense. So if we're going to spin this to a positive, I'm just thinking about a game, maybe late in the season, maybe it gets A&M. I mean, we're always getting opportunistic touchdowns. I can see Quinn turning it around. I can see our offensive line being like, man, okay, like let's look at the film here. We've been brutal. Like, let's be mean. Let's go beat Florida, right? Like, we are Texas. Like, if we want to win a national championship, which we still can, it's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Go get it. And Anthony Hill and company are dominating on defense, and they're giving you an opportunity. Will we get into a fist fight again? With Georgia or whoever, our defense will keep us in the game. So I think that's a positive.
Our defense has been awesome this year. Pete Kwiatkowski has been dialing it up. He's been having a great balance of when to pressure compared to when we need to go into coverage, when we need to play man, to when we need to play zone. Because I was watching, we mixed it all up when to have Anthony Hill as a middle linebacker to when we need to have Anthony Hill on the edge. So, and then when to put Benda and LaFau, the other two linebackers in there with Anthony Hill. Like they've been going to the more 3 linebacker look, which I expected because Vanderbilt's a heavy run team. So you need 3 linebackers to both stop the run and to spy Diego Pavia. I also want to give a shout out to number 25 on the secondary, Jelani McDonald. He had to step in because we already lost Derek Williams in the Oklahoma game to a season-ending injury. And then Makuba also got hurt against Georgia, so he was out to this game. So we were down to our 3rd string safety, and Jelani McDonald is a very talented sophomore. He's 6'2". You could see that he's pretty tall and he's pretty built. And
he was good.
And I thought he laid the wood. You could hear it throughout the stadium, albeit it's not a big stadium, but he laid the wood on some people. When he hits you, you're going down. And he's a physical player, and he also really stepped up really well as Michael Taft, who is a great story. He's a local Austin kid. He's a former walk-on, and he's been balling out. So this secondary, in place of Makuba's absence, stepped up really much last night.
Oh, man, McDonald was awesome. I mean, we noticed him right away. We're like, man, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who McDonald was. I was like, who is McDonald? Because I know Muhammad and Makuba and all them, but
and Barron,
and Barron, of course, also from Austin, and he just was making plays. I was like, man, he was really good. Taft, of course, was awesome, and Trey Moore finally had a good game. They were talking about him during the game broadcast of like, man, he's finally showing up. Been kind of a disappointment this year.
Yes,
based on his production from UTSA. So I still have a lot of hope. I mean, Anthony Hill's is a freaking stud. So I still think we need to get right. We need a get right game, and that's the thing with the SEC though. You're not going to blow out every team. I mean, even the teams that are not as good, they're still going to be more competent than some of the Big 12 teams. So I think we just gotta be happy that we won. Yes, it was ugly, but we're 7-1, and you live to see another day. And got a bye week next week, thank goodness, and hope Florida can take care of Georgia next week because boy, would that help them.
It really would. So speaking of Florida, let's look ahead a little bit. So yes, next week is a bye week, but the Florida Gators are going to be rolling into town They had the toughest schedule in the conference this year, but they've looked better recently.
Yeah.
Now they have their true freshman quarterback DJ Lagway after Graham Mertz got hurt. So, what are the keys to the game against Florida? Looking ahead, and then we'll get Nick's reaction to the Georgia game. But Nick, let's start with Florida first.
It's going to be the same thing that we usually say. Same thing that we said against Georgia in another big game. Offensive line. Offensive line has to be mean. We are more talented than Florida. We are one of the most talented teams in the country. Mm-hmm. We have to be mean on the offensive line. And we have to – I'm not even worried about turnovers. That's been an issue for us, I would say, probably earlier in the season.
Yeah.
But I'm not even worried about that. Those 2 interceptions, I mean, one was unlucky, one was kind of a dumb mistake. But again, the guy was in his lap, so I'm not gonna berate him over for that. I mean, it's not like he threw it into coverage. So I would say I'm not really as worried with turnovers. You gotta be better on penalties, and it's not even penalties on the defensive side because I don't recall many on the defensive side, if any.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
it was just the roughing the passer. That's really it. But yeah,
I mean, that was brutal.
And the holding on Muhammad, I think those are the only 2 I can remember.
The roughing the passer was brutal for sure, but
go ahead, Nick.
Not an issue.
Yeah.
So I would say you got to take care of offensive line has to be fierce, and you got to have less penalties, and we should have no problem. And then hopefully we can get I don't know, maybe you know about Isaiah Bond being back, but hopefully he's back and ready to go too. That'd be helpful. It
would be really helpful. So this Florida defense has been average this year. So let's continue to get the running game going, get the wide receivers involved, get Quinn's confidence going even more because we're going to need him more, throughout the season. So that's the key to the offense for me. On defense is let's make DJ Lagway look like the true freshman that he is. Let's heat him up. Let's force him in. He's going to be really talented. Like, he's going to be a great player down the road because he's an awesome player. He was a 5-star for a reason, but he's still a true freshman. Let's heat him up. Let's take away their running game because they have a great running back in Montreal Johnson. So let's force DJ Lagway to throw the ball in long down situations and make him look, like a young, inexperienced player, make him turn the ball over. But it's going to be a great game against Florida because we're going to be back home with the energy. Me and Nick are actually going to be at that game. So we're looking forward
we're going to be there.
Yeah, we're going to be at that game. So it should be a great time for sure. So now, before we wrap the show up, let's get your thoughts on Georgia because Nick went to the Falcons game last week with his dad. So and unfortunately the Falcons lost, but I'm sure he had a great time. But what are your thoughts? We were watching the game together. I already know Nick's reaction, but let's see him say it on camera.
Man, I thought we were going a little too. I mean, well, first let me just say credit to Georgia. I mean, they brought the fight to us. They beat us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They were the better team that day. They kicked our ass, and we kind of deserved that. I think going into that, our fans, maybe myself and you included, were I think we were like a little too casual about the game. Like game day picked us to win. I don't think we gave Georgia enough respect in that aspect.
You're right. Yeah.
We didn't play well enough. The offensive line got completely torn apart. I don't know his name, but 11 from Georgia. Absolutely.
Jalen Walker. Yeah.
Just killed us.
Yeah.
It was all over the field. On the positive side, I thought the defense played phenomenal. But as you said before, we convert. Not one time did we convert. And we had 2 picks off of Carson Beck in the first quarter. I mean, the game should be over, right? You should be up 14-0 or at the minimal 6-0, right? At least something, right? Nothing. Shut out in the first half, right? So obviously a very, very poor first half. But what I did like is we fought back. We got back into the game. We were within a touchdown, right? Then we get that interception and we throw stuff on the field. You know me, I don't like when any team does that. I think it's just, it's just kind of a bad look when you're playing for prime time and you're playing one of the better programs in the country.
And he said it right there. Everybody else, we were at a watch party, was like, yeah, fans, good for it. And Nick turned to me and he was like, I don't like that, Shivam. He said that to me right at that time.
I don't know. It's a bad look. If you want to be one of the premier programs and you don't want to be called a crybaby when you lose, you can't do that, right? It's just a bad look. It's a bad look to do that. You're getting your butt handed to you. You just got to take it. and hope you play him again next time. That's all you got to do. You can't. I mean, the call was wrong. The interception, it was the wrong call.
It
But we
was.
can't throw stuff on the field and then get the call reversed.
It's a bad look. Yeah.
So I would say a lot of the issues that we had against Georgia led into some of the issues against Vandy. Offensive line not doing great, but the defense was very good, kept us in the game. I'm not going to put all of it on Quinn. I did think Arch needed to come in and relieve him for a little bit, and I thought that helped, but it's still Quinn's team. We just got to get that offensive line fixed, and hopefully we play a lot better if we play them again. It is hard to beat a team twice or three times if that were to happen, but they definitely got us the first time for sure. So hopefully we get another crack.
That's all I want to say. Bring them on, Georgia again. It's going to be a different game, but it should be a really good game. So bring on the Dogs again for sure, and we're most likely going to see them either in the SEC championship or both teams make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens the second time. So as we wrap up this episode, I wanted to thank everybody again for watching and tuning into this episode of Touchdown Texas, episode 9. Be sure to follow us at Touchdown Texas on our social media channels and follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be pumping out content every week as the season is getting close down the stretch. But next week it is a bye, so we wanted to make an announcement that me and Nick are going to do a special episode next week. We're going to break down the SEC quarterbacks. We've been wanting to do that. The bye week's a perfect time to do that. And now the SEC race is heating up to the championship game. So we're going to break down all the teams that are in contention for the SEC championship game and our confidence of whether they have a chance to make the playoff or they're going to be looking on the outside. So that should be a fun episode coming up next week. It's most likely going to be Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, sometime like that. So that's some bye week content that we're going to be doing. But overall, it was a great day to be a Longhorn yesterday. We got the win, and hook 'em, Nick.
Welcome.